Get up, get focused, and get into your passion, because we moyo everywhere we go. I gave you a quote. Viktor Frankl said, between the stressor and the response, there is a space. And in that space is where we grow. It's where we find out about ourselves. And one of the most important things about that space, if we're going to utilize the power that exists for us to choose our response to stressors, is we have to acknowledge that that space can exist. And the reason why I say can exist is because I believe it's a potential space. See, there's been so many times in my life that I've not allowed that space to develop, that I've received a stressor or a stimulus and immediately responded. I've been quick to speak, quick to respond, and slow to listen and evaluate. And so no space existed because I wouldn't let it. But if we acknowledge that there is the potential for that space, if we realize that that space can exist and that we can create that space, and the way we do that is we have to believe that we're in control of our response. We have to understand that so many times when I get a stressor or a stimuli, that I respond immediately and aggressively. And what I like to say is passionately, because I'm trying to paint a better picture and give myself an excuse. But really what it is my heart is responding. And so I try to paint the picture and say, well, I've just got a passionate heart. But here's the truth. Jeremiah 17:9 says, our hearts are deceitful above all things. So it's that response from the heart that causes us grief, that causes a hit to our ego. And so if we acknowledge that there is a potential space, we can create that space, and we can then use that space to govern our reaction. And then we are in control. So how do we create that space? How do we acknowledge that space? First and foremost, you have to acknowledge the fact that you don't have to respond immediately, that there is time where you can see from a different perspective, where you can stretch that time and allow yourself to see things from all the sides, maybe from a different point of view. And the way that I do that, that I learned to do that, is to realize that I don't have to get caught up in the toxic thoughts of everyday static in my life. So throughout the day, every day, I take time to just slow down in the midst of the confusion. When I feel my thoughts running out of control, I go back and I find a quiet spot at my desk and I just breathe. Maybe for a minute, maybe for 3 minutes or 5 minutes. It all depends. And maybe it's just standing in the hallway, one big breath to center myself and to understand that I do have control, that I have the ability to take control of that space. So if you can acknowledge that the space exists and acknowledge that you can create it, then you can utilize it for your advantage. And that's how we begin to really realize where the control lies in our ability to respond. Every day is an opportunity to put these skills to work. I utilize every day, every opportunity. Acknowledge that space can exist and you have the power to create it. Moyo everywhere we go.